We are going to talk about your latest book, A Most Noble Water, which rewrites the history of gin. I think it would be useful to start things to lay out briefly what the history of gin looked like before this book was published. The kind of established facts, in inverted commas, as they were, just for anyone who's kind of catching up, because I think to contextualize what this revisionist history is that revisionist history a derogatory term or
it's
not?
Actually a return to the original history, because revisionist history is what we were all teaching.
Right.
Oh, since the 1960s, 1800s, 1860s. And in fact, even when we first wrote Shaken Not Stirred, 1995, we even said all sorts of stupid stuff because that's what people told us.
Yeah.
That was what was written every place.
Yeah.
We all knew that gin was born because English soldiers during the 30 Years' War fought alongside the Dutch, saw them drinking Dutch courage in battle, came home circa 1649 with a taste for Dutch courage, spurring massive imports of Juniper, which somehow eventually morphed into gin. Was it 1689 King William of Orange ascended to the throne, along with Queen Mary, and they inspired the nation to drink Juniper, which led to the gin craze, and somehow between 1689 and 1715, we saw the beginnings of gin.
Oh, but you forgot the original story, which is one even we told. There wasn't a single human being, literally, not one of us, that didn't say, once upon a time, a doctor named Franciscus de la Boe created a kidney tonic, and it eventually became gin. The funny thing is the only de la Boe who even came close to being called Sylvius was a neurologist that worked on the crack in your head, the Sylvian fissure. What does that have to do with kidneys? I'll never know. Oh, well, with some people it might go in reverse, but who knows?
So 1700s, we then get the gin craze. What happened then, or what was supposed to have happened then?
I think my favorite was one tabloid headline that said, "Hundreds of gin-soaked rioters arrested in Piccadilly." And we looked at the court records for that day. Do you mean 2 arrests?
Wow.
So, the whole gin craze was greatly exaggerated by the tabloids.
That's not like the tabloids to do that kind of thing.
I know.
Some things don't change.
Yeah, it's like, when was fake news really invented?
The brewing industry decimated by demon gin.
Decimated? Not according to what I saw in the records.
And then we had the so-called gin acts.
What gin acts?
The 8 gin acts from 1729 up to 1751.
And the word gin never appears, neither does Geneva.
Cool, we'll get to that. And of course, Hogarth's Gin Lane, which was around about the same time as that last gin act.
Yeah.
1750, 1751.
Yeah, 1751.
3rd of March, 1751, the pair of images, Gin Lane and Beer Street, first went on sale for a 2p. Originals sell for a bit more now.
They were engravings, right? And then you print off that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now,
I think 2007 Sotheby's sold a second printing for about 27 grand.
yeah. Although now we're sitting, was it 3 blocks away? No. The Fuller Brewery is 3 blocks away from Hogarth's house.
Yes.
And it's always been a brewery on that spot. So I wonder why he kind of liked breweries instead of distilleries.
Good question. Yeah.
So we've all wondered for a long time.
Or who funded
His neighbour of Fuller's or whatever was there before Fuller's.
Yeah,
Lamb's Brewery.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're led to believe that by 1751, things are completely out of control. Most of London is drunk on gin. Pregnant mothers dropping babies, this sort of thing going on, which no doubt was going on because that does happen sometimes. but maybe not to the fullest extent that Hogarth depicted, or indeed the tabloids. And then what about after that? What I mean, in terms of sort of the commonly held belief, what happened after 1750s?
You see, this is the problem, is according to what everybody has supposed, is the last of the gin acts changed everything.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden people stopped drinking gin, which does not explain why in the 1800s George Cruikshank was illustrating gin palaces and Charles Dickens was describing gin palaces. So what is this big gap? And why do people say, oh, it's the end of the gin craze?
But there were two acts of parliament in that time that did impact what people were drinking. One that had a bit of a slow impact was 27 June 1825, when Parliament said no person shall own a still under 400 gallons, or 1,818 litres. And that saw the end of new licenses for stills issued.
Craft distillers, you might call them.
In a lot of startups. Nobody could start up with an 1,800 liter still. You started out much smaller. And so there were no new licenses issued right up into the 21st century.
Well, I mean, this was one of them, right? Sipsmith.
Yeah.
This was the first one.
This is the first one for London. At the time, there was a handful of distilleries making gin in Britain on the basis of that legal work. There's now over 1,000 provisional exceptions to that act, meaning it's not that it was undone. It's not that it was made completely legal again, but Parliament said, yeah, you can go ahead and distill, but we're watching you.
Interesting. So that law has not changed. It's a provisional exception.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, still
It's a
intact.
fun one.
And this was the first provisional, and not on this site, but the Sipsmith original Sips Distillery was the first.
10 minutes east of
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
In Brackenbury Village between Hammersmith and Shepherd's Bush. But also the Sale of Beer Act 1830,
Yeah.
which dropped the tax on beer compared to the tax on spirits.
Finally.
And that was undoing something William of Orange had put on to beer versus spirits
Yeah.
by taxing per barrel of liquid. And what was that, 270 serves in a barrel of beer versus...
230 servings per 36-gallon barrel of beer versus a few odd thousand,
Yeah.
tens of thousands of drams that were sold
Yeah.
individually.
I mean, if you think a dram versus a pint, or what size beer were they drinking back then? Was it pints?
Not really.
What's
It's
the imperial pint measures?
imperial pint measures, but that was being liberal. No, most of it was actually done in beakers.
So that taxation was to the benefit of spirits producers because they had so many more servings come out of a barrel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
so
when
they
that
could
was-
sell more.
When that was undone
Yeah.
by Wellington, that really took a chunk out of the spirits industry. Wellington, known as the Iron Duke, not for what he'd done on battlefields or anything like that, but because his house at the corner of, that's where the Lanesborough Hotel is now.
Yeah, I know.
Is that Hyde Park Corner?
Yeah.
Hyde Park Corner. He was such a staunch conservative. The reformers would regularly come by and throw stones through his windows, so he put up iron shutters.
Oh, really? That's why it's the Iron Duke?
That's the Iron Duke.
No way. It doesn't sound so cool, does it?
I think that's one of the excuses of why when we had at one point, there was once upon a time a gin club. And there were a group of us, distillers and some bar owners would get together once every few months and do something silly to look at the history of gin. And one time we even booked Wellington's Arch. Actually, there is a dining room
upstairs.
at the top of the arch under Boots. It's like, okay. And you're just staring up and going, ha ha, You thought you were going to do something to us. We're under you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, so what else is there to say about the sort of incorrect history, let's say, of gin? Maybe we should, 1800, we should talk about the gin and tonic, and of course, how brilliantly anti-malarial tonic is. And of course, the British officers serving in the Indian Raj would mix their anti-malarial tonic with gin to make it a bit
It was
more
given to them as a ration.
As a ration.
by the-
and of course, that makes it more palatable, makes it fun, and that's how we have the gin and tonic today, correct?
Wrong.
Except not a single part of that is true. First of all, the British troops in India during the Raj weren't British. They were locally recruited. Their choice of intoxicants were bhang, ganja, toddy, arak, opium.
And hooch. I love hooch. I love it. It's a nice
Yeah.
generic hooch.
Yeah, just hooch. What would you take hooch to mean back then?
Leftover dregs of everything else stuck into a bottle, shake it up mildly, and everybody sits around in a circle and goes, ooh. Yeah.
And whatever was coming off the still, depending on whatever you put into the still.
Yeah.
And generally without worrying about cutting heads and tails.
I'm worrying about your eyesight, which could come back or not.
Yeah.
But yay, intoxicated.
Intoxicated.
But the British officers, perhaps it was them. Oh, wait, no, they were drinking gin, lime, sugar, sparkling water as a ration.
Tasty. I mean, that's sort of like, I guess, Ricky-esque. Yeah.
It's very risky-esque.
Yeah.
And also, a bit like the daiquiri which Jennings Cox Jr. did not create in 1896.
Exactly.
Actually,
Oh, we're getting bonus rum history now as well.
Yeah, there's a
This is
little,
great.
little bit on that too.
well, this is that combination of basically punch. But 1762, the Royal Navy sailed into Havana Harbor, seized Cuba from the Spanish, held it for 18 months. And before that, the Cubans had no tradition of combining spirit, citrus, sweetness, dilution. After that, an unbroken history through Conchanchara, and then Cuba Libre, which I know you're thinking, wait, rum and coke? No, Cuba Libre was rum, lime, sugar, and water in newspapers in 1868, 1872 in Cuba.
And that's before Coca-Cola was even invented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the drink was named the daiquiri, but 1769 Spanish Dictionary of Foreign Terms, so 7 years after that occupation, had a phrase in it, ponche, punch, aguardiente, azúcar, limón y agua, rum, lime, sugar, and water, una bebida inglesa, an English drink.
It's the English problem.
So there it was, just to cement how the daiquiri was actually born, was through colonization.
Yeah, that's another book, though.
That's
from
another
a few,
one.
Brief
yeah, from a few years
colonization.
ago, so it's fine.
But back over to India, where indeed gin and tonic was being consumed, because Pitt's aerated quinine tonic water launched 18th March 1858 in London with an ad campaign saying this drink will replace the brandy and soda as your doctor's recommendation for your daily drink, back when doctors recommended daily drinks.
That when doctors were doctors.
I think that was my favorite. Was even Mark Twain was prescribed whiskey and citrus as a way of curing his ills when he was on the road.
I think it was that with sugar or honey.
Honey. Yeah. It's like, okay, that sounds reasonable.
Hang on, who invented the gold rush?
I mean, Mark Twain
Insulin, sorry.
claimed
Whoops.
practically every quote ever existed, so why not a cocktail as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Except we'd have to credit Twain's doctor.
Twain's doctor, of course. Yeah.
But, yeah, so tonic water launched in London, but I guess nobody fell in love with the brandy and tonic, because within 4 years, you could find Pitt's aerated quinine tonic water more available in the colonies in Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and India. 1873, I started to see newspaper articles of people arriving from India to London, walking into pubs and saying, hey, where's the national drink of England? What's that then? Well, gin tonic.
Huh?
Yep, I can make you one of those.
Be right with you.
Yeah, so
Run down the street. It's okay.
That's, according to newspapers of the time, the birth of gin tonic. As an anti-malarial, no. You know what was never a problem in Britain? Malaria. You know what was? Food safety standards. You know what was even more of a problem in India? Food safety
So it
standards.
was a tonic not for malaria, but for sort of digestive aids, kill that kind of, dodgy meal you've just eaten because guess what? It's the 19th century and you're living in London.
Well, considering the start of anything to do with carbonation had to do with digestive aid.
They were medicinal. All carbonated beverages were sort of seen to be medicinal to begin with.
I mean, when Jacob Schweppes decided he was going to come over to England and see if he could convince people to invest in his grand idea, he went to the lunatics of Birmingham and said, okay, what do you think of this stuff? And Charles Darwin's grandfather was one of the people who said, this
One
stuff...
of the lunatics?
He was one of the lunatics. And
Why were they called the lunatics?
because they only met on a full moon so they could ride home staggering.
It's lunar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very lunar.
Yeah.
But it was because he had it in 5 different degrees of,
Carbonation.
yes, from toad's eyes all the way down to...
And that each one would be for a different malady, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Each one was for a different problem, and it got you to burp.
I mean, I guess that goes back to sort of natural sparkling mineral water
Yeah.
having a sort of curative, medicinal reputation for centuries, presumably millennia, in fact.
Yeah.
And then, when you work out how to force carbonate liquid, you're like, cool, I've just invented medicine.
Just invented spring. Exactly. It's like this ridiculous idea that people took the waters, even when water was deemed to be dangerous. People were still taking some waters because it was considered to be good for you. I mean, there was a whole argument in this, all the way from the 1500s, of should you drink water or should you drink ale or beer? Why? Because it's fizzy? Okay, good. As long as you have something fizzy, it's going to be good for your digestion. Having something that's not fizzy, shouldn't do that because all of a sudden you're going to feel horrible. It wasn't really because, again, another one of those myths we've all said is that water had lethal pathogens, and that's why everybody was drinking beer. Truth was, it was a digestive thing.
So they thought because beer was fizzy, it would just be better for digestion.
Yeah, because
rather than sort of an actual knowledge that beer in some way was safer to drink than the tap water.
Yeah.
Or where it is getting it from.
Well, they did kind of know that, but they never scientifically proved it at that point.
They just didn't know why.
They had no idea.
I mean, sort of molecular biology wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, without
Really?
without microscopes,
Yeah.
no one could conceive that there were things smaller than the eye could see.
Yeah, and I've had a few discussions with other academics, and we've all agreed we don't know for certain why people decided, okay, beer and ale are going to be great because it's not as dangerous as drinking water. It was because all water was filled with E. coli? Probably not. Giardia.
Cholera.
But don't forget now, when you look at Bristol in the West Country from up by Burton-upon-Trent all the way down to Bath, you have water that is crystal clear, not even touching cow poo, deer poo, or any other poo, because it's encased in limestone. And that was considered to be great beer. It's great water for beer. Other than spring water, it was considered to be the best water for beer ever.
Is that why Burton became such a famous brewing town? Yeah, good water.
Yeah.
Another center of Carboniferous limestone.
Another center for Carboniferous limestone. And the reality is you look at Bristol beer, which was a brown porter in truth before London porter, was being transported to any place, Caribbean, North America. Burton, on the other hand, was going up north, up to Hull, of all places, to go up into Scandinavia and Russia for their bottled beer. Think about it. But it's all coming from the same source.
Yeah. Wow, they were exporting it all to Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was good.
Because it was good. And people liked it.
In case you haven't heard, this is going to be the summer of the Paloma. It's a fantastic, long tequila drink, the bedfellow of the margarita, citrusy, fresh, and incredible, vibrant pink color. If you're going to make this drink, then you're going to need this from my sponsor, Fever Tree, their pink grapefruit soda. Made with fresh, ruby red grapefruits, it adds that wonderful, sweet, sour, and slightly bitter tang to a nice Paloma. Take yourself a highball glass, fill it up with plenty of ice, add a splosh of your favorite tequila, and then top up with Fever Tree's pink grapefruit soda. Finally, and most importantly, finish with a slice of pink grapefruit. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, well, look, we've got on to brewing, which I know is definitely very much your wheelhouse as well, Stash. But let's revisit gin and start from the start. I think probably it's appropriate to start with a relatively brief rundown of the story of distillation arriving in Europe to sort of preface the story of juniper spirits. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. Sure.
Okay, so I'll hand it over to you then.
Do you want to start with the point that happened before the point that I'm going to talk about?
You're talking about the arrival of distillation technology.
Yeah, you do
here.
that. Yeah, you do that part, and I'll take over when it comes to the juniper part.
Jumping how far back? Habir al-Kindi al-Razi.
I mean, that's... So the Middle East is where this begins.
Yes.
Actually,
Well, no,
it begins
China.
in
China. Okay, we can go back to China.
Let's go all the way back.
The origins of intentional distillation, we jump back to China. The trade of knowledge was the most important commodity that moved west along the Silk Road. We got medicine, astrology, astronomy, so many other science came along the Silk Road. Distillation was one of those studies. When it reached Persia, the alchemists there did a deep dive into it, and they forwarded the knowledge so much they built on it beautifully. Then the Moors occupied the Iberian Peninsula and brought all this information with them, and there were a few middlemen to mediate constantly between the Europeans and the Moors.
Well, the best one was Robert of Chester, who actually translated most of the Arab texts into Latin so that the monks could actually read it. And that was before the Pope said, nix. Sorry, you can't do that. That's that devil worshipping stuff.
But Arnaud de Villeneuve...
When did that happen?
In the, let's see, Robert of Chester was the 12th century.
And Arnaud de Villeneuve, 1290 to about 1305, earned the title as Father of Armagnac, which is the first of the European spirits.
Is it Montpellier University?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Which also was home to a pope, actually to three popes.
Three popes.
When the papacy was split, and you had a pope in Rome, but you also had a pope in Montpellier, and Arnaud de Villeneuve was physician to a couple of popes and a couple of kings.
Wow.
Get you some influence.
Important man.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, and working from these translated texts, came up with Armagnac, which gave birth to brandies, to cognac, and it was that which found its way into Germany, into Britain.
So we're saying that the original European spirits were probably based on grapes.
They were almost all based on grapes, at least until anything that we've seen documented. Well, let's put it that way, because it probably happened before then, but first documentation we find is around the 1400s, when it wasn't men that were making grain-based spirits, but it was, drum roll please, women. They were taking their leftover beer and going, ooh, I've got this cute little thing. And I've been using it to make hydrosols to preserve the qualities of the herbs I'm using. And I know that if I mix the herbs with spirit, that gives me medicine that I can hold on to in the wintertime. But what if, because my husband's making this juniper berry laced brandy, what if I did the same thing with beer? Oh, what if I make a little money on the side? Oh.
So this was Austrian and German women
Yes.
who were the brewers distilling their excess beer with juniper.
So let's just pick that apart for a second. So
Yeah.
prior to the sort of innovation of distilling beer,
Yeah.
they had stills, and I'd like you to describe what these stills were like in a second, that they were producing hydrosols on.
Yeah.
And there was some history of this as a way of preserving herbs to use culinarily, or is it perfume, or?
Mostly it was for culinary and medical reasons,
Okay.
because women, besides the monks, women were the other doctors, as it were. It's actually kind of amazing that the two people who embraced the idea of distillation most were women and monks.
Why? What's the Venn diagram there between women and monks? Where does that cross over?
That crosses over. Mommy, I don't feel good. You gotta fix me. Oh, I'm on the road. Oh, I'm going to be at the monastery. I've got jungle belly. I've got to do something about this. And of course, who are the two people who are going to kindly help you?
So it's care.
Yeah. Care and consideration became, oh, that stuff was really good. Made me feel great. Can I have a little bit of that? Are you sick? No, but I really like some. And it sort of tumbled into people enjoying it. I mean, there's one historian in 1980. I'm still shocked that nobody in the drinks industry has ever heard of this historian. But in 1980, she went in and published a paper of all of the court records she found in Augsburg, Germany in the 1450s of women getting in trouble for making juniper spirit and getting their husbands kicked out of town. Because after all, it's the rights of coverture, so it's the husband, the head of household, who gets in trouble, not the dear innocent wife who's actually making this stuff.
I love this. I just
know, it's
imagining
great.
domestic arguments going on. Like, you've got to. This is obviously an Austrian or German.
Yeah.
You've got to stop making juniper spirits.
Yeah.
Can't you see? Like, you're shaming our family. I'm going to get kicked out of town.
Clink, clink, clink. But honey, look I've been making some kitchen money. I mean, that's got to be some great dialogue going on.
Yeah.
But no man, according to what she found, no man ever got kicked out for more than maybe 3 to 6 months.
That's a while.
Well, but considering Mummy's still at home doing what she's doing and nobody's stopping her because they kicked hubby out.
Yeah, it seems like a poor strategy to stop this going on. It's like, right, now kick him out so that she can continue doing stuff, and unobserved by anyone.
On the sly.
Yeah.
You could put it that way. Yeah.
So we've got we've transitioned distillation up into Germany and Austria. The choice of base material has changed to grain because grain grows better there, presumably.
Yeah.
You get obviously German wines, but you get a lot of cereals being grown around that part.
Yeah.
How did juniper become involved in this story exactly?
There's a lot of speculation to this. The Juniperus communis grows subarctic to subtropic all the way around the northern hemisphere. It's not actually berry, but it's a female seed pine cone where the scales became fleshy and formed together to give the appearance of a berry, so that birds would eat it and spread the seed, which worked very effectively.
So if you think gin sort of smells piney, it's because it's literally a pine cone.
Here's the pine cone. Surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. How did it make it into medicine? It was found to have great medicinal qualities as a diuretic, as an antiseptic.
Flea repellent.
It was 1248, the first of the plagues.
No, for oil.
The first time that we saw juniper being
Deployed.
used.
Deployed, I'd have to say actually 1300s. Yeah.
But doctors thought juniper would ward off the bad odors that they thought spread the plague. Suddenly we saw juniper enter cuisine. People bathed in juniper oil, garlanded their homes with juniper, planted juniper around the house to protect them from these bad odors. And it's about 15 years ago, I woke up from a sound sleep, or 20 years ago, Googled juniper and flea repellent. Hundreds of naturopathic sites selling juniper oil, saying, yeah, great flea repellent. Where I had just been reading a book about this, where the historian had said, oh, juniper was just a silly superstition. Well, there I am, in the plague years, covering my place with juniper, bathing in it, eating it. My neighbor calls it a silly superstition. Now I've got to go bury him on Sunday. You know what? I'm going to stay with the silly superstition. They didn't know why it worked, but they knew it worked. Those plague masks filled with juniper berries. If you ever got a chance to put one of those on, or if you've had a chance to try one on,
Still waiting for the next plague before I get one out of the cupboard.
Yeah.
the last time in history, we found juniper smudge sticks being burned in hospital corridors to purify the air was Second World War in France.
Yeah.
They were still using
it.
juniper. Yeah.
Now, it's also a weird chronological, how did that happen? You got to think about the fact that when the earliest recipes for something like gin came along was, second decade of the 1600s. Guess what was going on in England in the 1600s, at least until 1664?
Pass.
Ready?
Bocce tournament.
What did you say? Volleyball tournament?
Bulls.
How about the plague?
Oh,
plague.
that.
Yeah, it was like six decades of the 1600s was plague territory. So here we go back to,
Do you
juniper's a
think
good
it
thing.
coincides with, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, the sort of
Coincidental.
arrival of junipered spirits in England at that
Yeah,
time?
it's like, okay, well, we know juniper is pretty good, and maybe if we drink it, it'll do the same thing as blowing it up in the fireplace. It's like, okay, why not? I mean, it's just coincidental. There is no fact that puts that all together. At least not yet.
Yep.
At least not yet. But what can you say?
The earliest juniper distillate formula that we found in London was an English translation of a German distillation formula book from 1500. And
Hieronymus Brunschweig.
we looked at Brunschweig's work, and it's pretty clear that he picked up recipes from Michael Puff von
I
Schrick,
love that name, Michael Puff von Schrick.
1476.
Yeah. And that was actually he wrote it in 1456, but it wasn't printed until 1476, simply because the printing press hadn't really taken off until right in between.
And so, was this in Germany?
Yes.
German man? Yeah.
Yes, this is Germany, not the Low Countries, nothing to do with it. This is all
I do
in
want to
Germany.
sidestep to the Low Countries and Geneva at some point, just
Yeah.
to sort of see where we're at in this sort of chronological tour in terms of what was being produced then, and we should touch on Lucas Bolz and friends when we get there.
We'll get there.
So we've moved from German housewives to suddenly printed books.
Yes.
So there's obviously the invention of the printing press that needs to kind of factor into this.
In the 1450s.
Very much so.
In the 1450s.
And the first 50 years of the printing press, there were far more distillation formula books printed than copies of the Bible.
Really?
Priorities.
Yeah.
Priorities.
I fully support that.
Me too, but
But that's remarkable.
It has been documented by a number of people who do the history of printing. And when I first saw that fact, I went, you gotta be canking my chains. But then you think every literate housewife or literate person who could get themselves a copy of this, or at least read a copy of it from somebody else, had all this information available all of a sudden. And it spread like wildfire. Yeah, it's like, oh, fine, we finally have something like this that says you can do this if you harvest it during, I love these things, if you harvest it during the full moon on a cold night, it's the perfect time to get the ripeness of the juniper berries.
Sounds like biodynamic farming.
It is biodynamic farming. And then it's got multiple uses, male and female. And any way you look at it, it made people happy. So, of course, you're going to distill a bunch of this stuff. It's why not?
And juniper didn't tend to be the only flavoring or ingredient
No.
that was going into these things. It was, given, like you say, it's medicinal, you're kind of putting in anything that is readily available and not too expensive in order to support this medicinal tonic or tincture or distillate that you're making. So what were other common ingredients?
Well, it all depended on what period you're talking about, because some of the earlier ones, it was more local stuff like sage, thyme, rosemary was a biggie, rue of all things. It wasn't until later that you started getting, well, as more stuff was coming over from Spain, especially because there was a lot of heavy trade with the Iberian Peninsula and England at the time. You got a lot more citrus in.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the gradual, let's keep on adding things in. I think when you look at the book, because we did do verbatim recipes throughout the book.
There's quite a lot in there, isn't there? Yeah.
There's quite a bit. And I think, though, the top winner was the one in the Treasury of Yonah. It was 52 ingredients. And some of me wondered why. I really don't need, moth wings in my...
Is moth wings in Monkey 47, do you know?
Yeah, I wonder. I don't even know what's in Monkey 47, but it sounds like, here you go, kitchen sink. Bloom. Oh, what's in the garbage? Cool.
I think they've got pretty good quality control.
Yeah, I would hope so, because the one I read from the earlier days, you sit there and go, would I even want to be near this stuff? I know alcohol sanitizes things, but cut me a break.
Yeah, and presumably all justified under the guise of medicinal effect, right? I mean, otherwise, why would you're not putting it in there for flavor? Moth wings, I shouldn't think.
Well, I wouldn't consider maybe color. I mean, considering what people are putting in some gins these days, you begin to wonder. But it gives that pale blue color, just like it's.
But what about Ushkaba?
Oh, Ushkaba. Now here's this is one of my favorite ones, because you don't think about Ushkaba, or now we say whiskey, being something that was that different from Scottish English, but it was. English and Irish like to put stuff in theirs, and the Scotch didn't. It was that simple. You had distillates done by all three places, but there was, and again, another historian who discovered, yes, this is true, but Scotland didn't bother with all the herbs and spices. Ireland and England were having a ball, putting all this stuff in, seeing how it worked, and Ushkaba was actually a precursor to gin.
Yeah, so Irish Ushkaba, precursor to Irish whiskey, was actually on a track to become a gin.
Oh, very much
really.
So. Very
And
much
then
so.
At some point they decided to stop putting the stuff in there, and it was whiskey.
Well, they decided they really had good grain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it boils down to, is they decide, well, if we use barley instead of oats, we're going to end up with a better product. And considering the Irish were still even making beer with oats, there was this proclivity towards oats because they were cheaper to grow. But when they discovered that they got better results out of barley, well, there you go.
Okay. So just back to the German and Austrian housewives.
Yes.
Because
They're fun.
they really just need celebrating, obviously. As the sort
Go,
of
girls.
as the OG gin distillers, if you like, juniper water distiller.
Yeah.
Talk me through the technology of distillation at the time. What were they using to produce these products?
This is the part I love. Is
Still cold still.
it was cold still. It was this little, usually ceramic. It was
Earthenware.
earthenware terracotta cap that you put over a bowl, and you put that onto your heating source. Ashes was one version. Another one was just sticking it up above on a rack above the fire.
Ashes simply meant hot coals.
Yeah, hot coals. But either way, it was going to produce enough steam that you could get dribbles of stuff. when you realize that the only people who were really playing around with this were monks and housewives. And when you look at the cold still, it was the same design as the ones that de Villeneuve was showing off. That, which one was it, Al-Kindi or Al-Razi, that had come up with this?
Al-Razi.
Al-Razi had come up with this still design. I forget,
Yeah.
Kindi or Razi?
Why is it called a
Razi,
cold still?
Because the cap, which is kind of the shape of Where's Wally's hat, sat on top of the bowl, and inside there was a little drain catch for all the condensation.
Yeah.
But the cap remained cold enough that the steam would condense against it, run down the inside into this trough, and out a spigot.
This is a lot like some of the old ancestral stills in Mexico and in the Philippines as well,
Precisely.
where you kind of have this rather than having a condensation coil, you have a cap that is cooled, and then condensate drips down and either gets caught in a vessel inside or comes out through some spigot and is collected.
Exactly. That's the joys of the alquitara from the Chinese via the Philippines getting into Mexico versus the cap-like ones that came basically from France and Italy, elsewhere, all around Europe, to spread around by the monks and eventually adapted, because how can you stop when you found the perfect simple tool that any housewife can put on their hob and play with?
Yeah. It's quite interesting, that, isn't it? You have distillation technology, this is going back 500 years, moving in two directions from the Arab world. One west into Europe, and then eventually across the ocean to the Americas, and the other going east, right? Or coming from China to the Philippines, Mongolia, and then over the Pacific, and they eventually meet in Mexico.
As two completely different styles.
Yeah. And they're still there in Mexico today, You still have, obviously, alembic, style distillation, and you have these old stills that come from Asia.
Yeah. And even though the one book, what was that one bestseller that happened back in the 1990s, 1493?
1434, Gavin Menzies.
Yeah, him. And
the Chinese circumnavigating the world.
Yeah. And of course, half of that's been dispelled now. But the one thing that they cannot refute.
Has it?
Yeah, a lot of it.
A lot of his
was
hypotheses
oh, God.
were dispelled.
That was a big best-selling book, right? That sold a lot of copies, I think.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a problem. See, when I first started out in the world, I was studying archaeology.
You did your undergrad.
I did my undergrad in archaeology. And I was starting a master's, and then I said, sod it, I'm not good at lying. Because that's all you do in archaeology is you go, ooh, I found something. Ooh, I'm going to call it spring. I had cohorts that would sit there and go, ooh, look at this piece of pottery, and it's got stripes and dots.
Have you noticed the facets on this glass? Can you tell me about the religious significance?
Religious significance it had to do with the gods of the culture.
It's the Holy Trinity times 2.5.
Right, exactly. And that's what archaeologists do. Yeah. Oh, 8. Isn't that the same?
2.6 recurring.
In the 21st century, they must have worshipped 8 gods.
Indeed, yeah.
I mean,
or an octagonal god.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem when you deal with archaeology is you have a lot of what ifs, and history doesn't believe in what ifs. So that's why historians always sound sort of lacking in confidence, because we say, well, we think we kind of know because this is all we found so far. Where an archaeologist will go, this dinosaur really exists. How long was it when you and I were born? There was brontosauruses, and now they're called brachiosaurs because they discovered somebody fused 2 sets of bones together.
Yeah.
They found the same pit.
Yeah, if you go to Crystal Palace Park, you've seen the dinosaurs there.
Yeah.
And of course, I think they're maybe 100 years old, something like that. Maybe not even that. But their interpretation of what a dinosaur looked like was varied. It wasn't that they were bad artists or craftspeople. It's like, this is what they thought the dinosaurs looked like. And I mean, who's to say that we're correct today? It's
We'll never know. But you see, that's always the problem that historians know, which is Were you there?
Yeah.
Is this a first-person account? If
Yeah.
it isn't, go away.
It's interpretation, isn't it? It's interpretation of the available evidence.
Yeah.
And you don't have all the evidence, and so that's the best you can do, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we've got off topic.
Yes, of
'cause we're
course
talking
we
about dinosaurs.
You're
Let's go-
talking to us. Guess what happens? I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have Juniper and other herbal distillates going on in Germany and Austria. We have the arrival of the printing press and the beginning of this dissemination of knowledge.
Yeah.
Everyone's printing books. Albertus Magnus and Roger Bacon.
Yes.
Having read your book, it strikes me that these two men are quite important.
Very key.
Yes.
Who are they?
Well, they were part of a gang with really odd honorific names attributed to them by the church, like Dr. Mirabilis.
Sounds like a magician.
Yeah, they do. They sound like magicians. Magnus is the only one that actually is a sainted distiller, if you will, a sainted alchemist.
Can we say he's the patron saint of distillers then? Has anyone said, can we instantiate this?
I haven't yet.
I think that title really goes to Arnaud de Villeneuve.
Right. Yeah.
Or Arnaldo de Villanueva or Villanova, claimed by the Spanish, the Catalans, the French.
He's
I think
ours.
the Italians put in a claim.
Oh, so his,
Yeah, they put
his
in-
ancestry is not completely known because everyone says that he's
Catalan.
Catalan.
He was
Yeah.
Catalan, but everyone, success has many parents.
Sure,
and he
sure.
was
We'll take him.
a success in this, though the sainthood skipped a generation. He wasn't, but his daughter was sainted, San Rosalie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there's saints in the family. Well,
There's saints in the family. Although Magnus was a cardinal. Albertus Magnus was a cardinal, so he actually got up there despite the fact that he was dabbling in things he wasn't supposed to be dabbling in, according to the Pope.
So by this point, the Pope was frowning upon certain...
Not at that point.
Not at that point.
Not
okay.
at that
On
point.
them searching for the water of life
Yes.
and the Philosopher's Stone.
course.
J.K.
Yes.
Rowling didn't make that one up. She
No.
from the pages.
Nicholas Flamel the real Nicholas Flamel spent a lot of time mucking around with a still.
Yep, he existed.
He did exist.
And this was the Philosopher's Stone... What was the purpose of it? Was it eternal life, or was
Yes.
it was so it wasn't to turn iron into gold?
Well,
Or
it
lead.
depends on
Let
who
it go.
it depends on who you speak to.
Right.
Because some people attribute, again, we're not first person. Some people attribute it to being how you're going to convert lead into gold. Other ones say it's to make you immortal.
Oh, please, they weren't fussed. They'd take either.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's good, right?
Either way, rich
Both
or
even
long
better.
living,
they
both well.
didn't get one, but they found longevity in the other
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
because the number one cause of death throughout history was waterborne pathogens, and
we
the
go again.
only known preventive, palliative, etc., was consuming alcohol.
which even today, we've advised people before when they go to certain countries, if you do not drink alcohol, you will not feel great at some point.
If you
Yeah, you
switch
don't-
over to water from a low alcohol beer, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you're gonna feel great anyway if you drink it, aren't you?
Oh, you're going to feel wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, tasty and you feel immortal. It's great.
Feel immortal.
You feel
Feel
immortal.
immortal, yeah. Same thing.
Same principle.
So
Please
so
drink responsibly.
please drink responsibly, of course. Yeah.
Author's message.
Yeah. So Magnus.
Yeah.
What did he do for gin? For Juniper spirits?
Well, for Juniper spirits, he was the one who introduced a lot of these recipes that people paid attention to for non-medical reasons. Hence the reason why you had the brandy distillers in Germany were saying, oh, you could make something really nifty that's definitely way above what you can get from France by adding juniper to it, adding other things to it. Hey, this is perfect. And again, it's one of those disseminations from people who knew how to read Latin to people who had the money to say, I want you to go make this. I mean, this has happened in every country. We have found in Scotland the first time a monk was commissioned to make aquaviti.
Friar John Core, was it?
Yeah, Friar John Core, I want you to make, a few hundred liters of this stuff because it's just damn good. And really,
For
this
the
is...
king, no less.
Yes, for the king. Well, that's the cool part, is that royalty, early adapters, early influencers. And when you realize that Henry VIII decided, okay, forget this Hippocrates stuff. I want something with a little more kick to it. Okay, let's do aquaviti. Cool. Then his daughter goes, yes, but I like Rosa Solis instead. And you realize, and she's commissioning people with a monopoly to make this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is where you get another joke, which is the birth of conspicuous consumption. And you realize that no matter what economic scale, rich or poor, everybody wants to do what the rich people are doing.
Do you think that there was an incentive there to sort of promote a product as a member of the royal family so that you can then coin it by selling it as well, or being part of the sales?
Economic joy.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at how much, okay, this is the other fun thing. It's when you realize how much money was accumulated in tax, excise tax from alcohol from the very get-go. There are some historians who have calculated it was about 64% of the war chest of England was made out of alcohol money. Think about it. Oh, as if it's any different now. But yeah, it comes down to that. You could make money off of this.
Yeah.
And especially since everybody was embracing it. Don't complain. And they were doing it for fear of missing out.
So it's sort of influencer culture, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was one of the first evil influencer cultures, and it did not kill off beer, even though there are other people who say, oh, it killed off beer completely. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. The rolls still show that for, let's say, 84,000 barrels of spirit produced in 1 year, you had 150,000 barrels of beer being made. Legally, I'm not talking about illegal, just legally, and being taxed.
When is this you're talking about?
We're talking about in the 1600s and 1700s. Beer did not go down.
But then again, you get, as we've mentioned already, you get a lot more serves out of a barrel of
you
spirit.
get a hell of a lot more serves.
Yeah.
Hell of a lot more serves. And as I say, that is not even discussing unlicensed.
Yeah, of course.
You see, that's the other trick. I think my favorite was when, who was it, Tony Robinson? Asked me to talk about how women were making illegal gin in London, and he was hoping, because we came here.
Oh, Baldrick.
Yeah, Baldrick.
American inspirational speaker.
No. Baldrick said, I want you to talk about, women gin sellers. And I went, okay. He said, well, we should do it at the distillery. I went, okay. And so he said, okay, so show me how to make gin. So we were in the lab, and I had all the herbs and spices set up, and I had a jar, and I had some spirit, and I said, watch carefully. Blah, blah, blah. Now you let this sit overnight, maybe you might smush it up a little bit, get a little bit stronger, filter it through, stick it in a bottle, tie it up to your leg, and put your skirt down. Go out there with a couple of beakers. And he's like, what? And I went, you think these women could afford, first of all, heating facilities in a single room in a tenement in London? I don't think so. And they're lucky that they could get some of the herbs and spices, but they could replicate them with sawdust, cat poo, anything. And they would just stick it in there and go, it smells about like what it's supposed to be. Yeah, okay, good. Here's the other secret. These women were capable of buying just the base spirit. It was not grain spirit. It was sugar spirit.
Sugar.
Molasses.
Molasses spirit coming from this funny little place called Bristol.
Yes.
So
that's coming over from the Caribbean, and then
as molasses.
As molasses.
This puts a bit of a dent in the understanding of the Infernal Triangle.
Yes.
The trade of molasses into the colonies.
Yeah.
And then the run to Africa and slaves from Africa into the Caribbean.
They stopped off at places like Bristol, where the Castle family was distilling it and then shipping it down to West Africa.
Yeah, because they used to take molasses up to Glasgow as well, I think, didn't
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's astounding that nobody's ever looked at the excise rolls. and you look at the names attached and how much were they actually distilling of corn, meaning grain wash, versus sugar wash. They were making a lot of money off of sugar wash.
But we've now jumped well past 1639.
Oh, yeah, way past 1639.
Yeah, and I mentioned before Roger Bacon.
Yeah.
My understanding is that he translated a lot of the works of
Yes.
Albert Magnus,
Yes.
and then therefore sort of brought these recipes to English language.
Yeah, into English language and over to Ireland. And so you can actually attribute Bacon as being the second, or the primary influencer of just how to distill.
Yes.
And then you add on Lawrence Andrews' translation in 1527 of Hieronymus Braunschweig's 1500 book of recipes that were actually adopted from Michael Puffmanschuk.
Yeah. Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got all these sort of sequence of translations and repurposing for different audiences going into print.
Yes.
And as that moves west across Europe towards England, the know-how that becomes available.
Yeah, and the line is a publishing line. You can, I mean, literally, you can say this person translated it from this person who translated from this person, which is why you haven't heard the words Italy or Belgium.
Yes.
And it's not saying that they didn't have something, but it never mainlined.
It didn't go, it's not on that sort of mainline trajectory that gets us to England.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not part of that story.
Yeah.
So let's briefly sidestep to those stories, Italy and also the Low Countries. So Italy, because there is some pretty old history of juniper spirits in Italy, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You're referring to circa 1186 University of Salerno Medical School, where there's some evidence that they wrote about distilling with juniper, but not only was it written in Latin, but it was written in code because they lived in fear of being burned at the stake for heresy.
Yeah, I really don't want to be burned as a witch.
Because it's like they're practicing magic.
Yeah, and potentially subverting God's will.
Yeah.
It's when spirit meant spirit.
Yeah.
Literally.
We found no connection forward in history
So it sort of
from that
stops
point in Italy.
Yeah. Yeah, I even looked in the Bodleian Library at some of the handwritten journals, English handwritten journals, and no one was bringing stuff into their work from Italy. They were bringing it in from these German editions. And that's when I said, okay, this is secret society stuff. Yeah, but it's definitely coming from one particular train of thought, and that was surprising.
There is a great potential that some historian in future will find evidence that connects that. We won't say that couldn't happen, but we will say we've not found it. So
One of the things I loved in the book, actually, is at various points you sort of highlight areas of interest that future historians, I mean, it could even be yourselves at some point, might like to investigate in order to understand better, like gaps in the story, as you might put it.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing that every responsible historian is supposed to do. So we were with Dave Rundrich in May, and as he said, yeah, you got me triggered off on a couple of things. I don't mind taking on that track. And I'm like, yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah.
You know, you really should, because somebody has to. No one historian, as a real historian, can say, I know everything. Because then they're full of it. So.
And then the Low Countries, so present-day Netherlands and Belgium, which, of course, as we've mentioned at the start, are normally attributed to the creation of Geneva and then subsequently then in English gin. So what was going on there? Did they... not normally accredited with, So what was going on there? Did they acquire the juniper spirit thing from Germany and Austria as well?
Yes, you figure Philippus Humani saw the same things of Braunschweig and Michael Puffmanschuk. The difference is, and this was attributed by Peter Shaw in 1731, the difference is in the Low Countries, they were mixing rye with other grain. And only doing
But it was predominantly rye.
It was predominantly rye, and they were doing a single shot scheme. The English, on the other hand, were using barley and doing multiple distillations
So
to
barley
clean it up.
spirit,
Yeah.
and then rectifying that with juniper
Yeah.
So this
versus making a rye beer with juniper, putting that into a still.
got
Yeah.
you. So yeah, that's just double click on that again. So in the Netherlands, they're basically brewing beer, predominantly rye grain, adding juniper and whatever else in there with that and distilling it
Yeah.
once.
Once.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah, they didn't clean it up.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty raw and rough around the
gonna be
edges
mean.
product. Yeah.
It's going to be mean. And what the only comparison I can give is if you take Scotch and you take American whiskey, and you're telling me that they're the same thing. They're not.
But to jump back just a little bit, in the Netherlands, 1690 something, King William of Orange returned to the palace at Louvre with his royal physician from London. The physician wrote an entire book on the gardens at the palace at Louvre. Possibly the most boring book I've read in my entire life, except chapter 8, which was all about the food and drink he encountered there. And in this whole chapter, not one mention of Geneva.
Really?
But any time, morning, day, or night, for no physic reason, everyone in the cafes was drinking a nauseous French wine made palatable with the addition of wormwood. They were in the midst of a vermouth craze.
They were vermouth craze.
There was no Geneva if you
How
wanted
ironic
Geneva.
that the other
You went
martini
to-
ingredient was being enjoyed by the Dutch.
I spent years trying to find any mention of them combining Geneva and this nauseous French wine.
Haven't found it yet.
Because that would set the martini back quite a few years.
Right?
But
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, imagine if the physician had taken English gin to accompany the king back to the Netherlands, and just, you know, things got a little bit sketchy one night. Let's have a bit of a party. Oh, you know, the Dutch guys are all enjoying this wine with wormwood, and maybe we'll mix it with the gin. And what's that?
They
It's
know how to
delicious.
party.
Chill it down, serve it in a coupe,
They know how to party.
olive or a twist. Yeah, there you go.
That could be cool.
It would be an orange twist, of course.
Of course.
William of Orange, right?
And of course, it would have been modern gin because the first modern gin recipe that we found, meaning juniper, citrus, spice, was published in London in 1639. So 10 years before the end of the 30 Years' War, when those English soldiers supposedly returned with a thirst for Dutch courage, which was just an American writer in 1804, misinterpreting a quote from Daniel Defoe when he was referring to a war a century earlier, where English soldiers indeed
Was that the 100 Years' War?
Yeah.
Yeah.
indeed returned with a thirst for Dutch courage, but Dutch courage wasn't Geneva.
It was brandy.
Brandy, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say, we did discover over the past, I'd say, 15 years, that we can blame 19th century to mid-20th century American journalists and writers for inventing stuff simply because they didn't have access to the information to figure out what the truth was.
You can't blame them for everything. They weren't responsible for the Steelbach cocktail.
No, that was more recent. Yeah.
So there you go. If your source is a sort of 19th century to mid 20th century American historian,
Yes.
you need to take it with a grain of salt.
Really take it with a grain of salt.
There are two,
I mean-
two rules for research. One, primary source information. Two, corroborative evidence.
Corroborative.
Fiddles.
So more than one.
Yes. And more than one.
Yeah.
That's why the one thing that does, I realize it and does intimidate people, but we did it intentionally in this book, is it's rare that somebody says, okay, yeah, usually you can find notes in the back of the book. This one I want to say, you want to play the game of prove it? Good luck.
Yeah, there's a lot of citations in this book.
Yeah.
Most pages has citations, and some pages are almost half citations.
But that was just to say, you want to really know where this comes from. You do want to argue with me, please. Go ahead and argue with me and show me that there was something earlier or more definitive.
But this text went through a year being challenged by a panel of scholars and
I love
was
peer review.
published in an academic journal
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
to ensure there was no more myths, misconceptions, or sloppy research about the history of gin.
Yeah.
So there you go. This is legit.
Yeah.
We're in England now. We kind of jumped past Distiller of London, 1627.
1639.
Oh, that's 1639. That was, so this is the book we're talking about.
Yeah.
Where you've got the first legit English gin, and this is where we get the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So do you want to sort of map out what they are? And we've got something to taste actually that's relevant to this, haven't
Yeah.
we? Yeah.
So, during the first lockdown, I was walking by Anastasia's desk in her home office, and I showed her this book from 1639, Distiller of London, published by the Worshipful Company of Distillers, the Distillers livery founded the year before. And it contained 200 distillations. No, it contained 36 distillation formulas
Plus variations.
written in 2 different codes
Yeah.
intended for the 200 members of the Worshipful Company of Distillers,
Yeah.
which is why it was in code.
And that's presumably they all got given a cipher as well
Exactly.
to read this thing.
This is the trick, is because each book was printed, no problem, but they left blank the actual cipher. And that had to be handwritten in by the founders and handed to the member on pain of death.
Right.
Yeah, that was the fun
So
part.
you then can sort of track every copy and who had what. And so if something goes missing or someone gets into the wrong hands, you've got a sort of paper trail.
Yeah.
But I had seen in there what appeared to be a modern gin formula. Rule 33 started with Juniper.
Why do they call them rules?
Because when you're a member of a livery, basically you're a member of a guild, and these were all the recipes that were considered to be the official, you are allowed to distill this if you are a commercial distiller in the City of London. So it's a rule because you cannot veer from the true faith
Okay.
or you're in deep trouble.
Yes.
So yeah,
Like protocol. Yeah.
all protocol.
Rule 33 started with juniper, orange and lemon peel, quince peels, cock's pippin apple peels, and then mace, nutmeg, clove, anise.
Yeah,
Sounds a lot like a gin.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
the problem is it sounded a bit too much like a modern gin because after distillation, they rested on strawberries and raspberries and sweetened to
It's a
taste. It
pink
was
gin.
pink strawberry gin in 1639.
So in actual fact then, pink English gin predates English gin.
Oh, yes.
You don't want to think about that now, do ya? No.
And sweet came before drying. In fact, all the recipes in Distiller of London were classed as sweets. Which, before you explained that one to me, I'm looking through Acts of Parliament, even up into the 1800s, I think they were still regulating sweets. And
Yeah.
I thought, my goodness, they're fussy about the pick and mix.
I mean, excuse me, the sugar refiners and the confectioners must be having living hell to live with.
Considering they're putting like children up chimneys,
Yeah.
it would be surprising if they were that sort of fastidious when it came to the composition of candies, right?
Exactly. It made no sense. And so it said, okay, what's going on here? And the name for the early spirits that they were doing were sweets.
And these were all sweetened to
All-
some degree or another.
Every single one of them.
So they're sort of, but not to quite the level of a liqueur usually.
No.
What we class as a liqueur
No,
now.
no.
So sort of somewhere between a spirit and a liqueur.
Yeah, it was sort of a hybrid. I don't know. I mean, nobody knows what the ABV was of this stuff because you didn't get that until the 1800s.
And the hydrometer.
Yeah, the hydrometer was the only reason we had a major change. Actually, that was the reason for the drying of all spirits.
Not just the hydrometer, but the calibration of the hydrometer. The hydrometer came before the calibration. And so some of the earliest hydrometers that we've purchased had no calibration. So
was it Sykes
basically
that introduced the calibration? Yeah.
learned from
but it already
the
existed before.
apprentice, learned from the master roughly where it should be floating.
Well, then, I mean, before that, you had pour it into a vessel and see what the bubbles do. So,
Exactly.
which they still do in Mexico.
And
Yeah.
don't forget, they had the measure of proof, where
Yes, and that as well, of course.
the
yeah.
minimum strength at which you could pour it on a spoonful of gunpowder and the powder would still ignite and explode as usual if the spirit be properly deflegmated.
Great word.
Yeah. Although there is a twist to that. There's another twist to that too about proof, is they talk about, well, you know, you didn't want your gunpowder affected when you're at sea. Well, see, this is the problem. They were putting the spirits and the rest of the food stores at one end of the boat,
Yeah.
and the ordnance was at the other end of the boat. So when did they ever meet?
On other ships,
Yeah.
the ordnance was stored above
Yeah.
the alcohol storage.
Which you're never really going to have a problem with.
In
Yeah, no
either
problem.
case,
Yeah.
if you were having a problem with that, it was the least of your problems.
Yeah.
Because it meant you were upside
Ships
down.
upside down, yeah.
That could be entertaining.
I like the Poseidon adventure.
Yeah, that's another adventure. Yeah, that's another adventure altogether.
Moment, you're not exactly sitting around going, oh, damn, the powder's wet.
So the sort of go. I mean, we're sort of in Navy history territory here. But so the purpose of proof then was more about getting your money's worth.
Precisely. And the reason the Navy would carry high-strength spirit is because they had a shortage of space for alcohol.
It needs to be strong
and they
enough.
had no shortage of water.
Yeah. You can always dilute it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so where were we? We jumped to hydrometers. We were talking about sweets, weren't we?
Yeah. Sweets.
We were talking about tasting.
And about
We were.
True.
Yeah.
There's also one other recipe that was in the Distiller of London that had a predominance of juniper, but it wasn't as easy to understand why you could say, "Ooh, that's another precursor to gin." Maybe
Is
it
that
was.
aquacrapulum?
Yeah.
Yeah, great name.
Great name. I love it. Yeah. And I wonder why versus aqua fructum. You know, you really begin to wonder why crap was not as good as fruit.
But it's Latin for intoxication,
Yes.
right? It's basically drunkenness.
Yeah.
Water of drunkenness.
Yes, we guarantee you will definitely feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I love the names of these things.
But it makes me think, I mean, Crapper, the modern toilet cistern inventor guy, the flush. So was his name sort of etymologically connected with drunkenness as well? I don't, that sort of brings a whole new twist on taking a crap as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. That's when you have to go, okay, now what do I do when I have yet another 3 seconds I can rub together? And that would be a fun one to look up. It's like,
What connects taking a shit and getting drunk?
exactly. A lot. But there you go.
Well, yeah.
Depends on what you're drinking.
There's many ways you can go with that.
Yeah,
so,
it can go all downhill.
So, Jared, what are we drinking?
What we're drinking is that recipe from 1639, Spirit of Spice, and Rule 33 in Distiller of London. And if anybody's interested, that book, Distiller of London, is now available on Amazon deciphered, because Anastasia deciphered the entire book over 18 months.
It's because I was trying to do the research on my doctorate, and you kept on going, honey, have you finished doing it yet?
How did you decipher it?
Oh, I just took a look at the
broke it.
cipher.
Yeah, you had the cipher, so it's not like you had to sort of do an enigma cracking situation.
Oh, no touring business. No, this is just simple. Take the numbers and start playing with them and seeing how the large quantity versus the small quantity, which is not mentioned throughout the book, of this one's small, this one's large.
Right. So it did require some pretty serious work then to...
A little bit of mumbling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there were some very hazardous moments, at least for me. Like when I walked by her desk, saw her working there about 6 months in, and I just offhandedly said, "Oh, did you see John French, 1653? He published a deciphered version." "What?" Legged it out to the garden. 45 minutes later, I poked my head in. "Is it safe?" She said, "Yeah, come take a look at this. He got it all wrong."
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he had some of the things that's supposed to be drams as grams.
Drams and grams. Well,
Yeah, that's a big difference
that
there.
picks those two up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of it.
Or what was that one recipe that Wondrich found for the martini that was half and half gin and orange bitters?
Earlier,
Oh, yes.
mentioned
Yeah,
Martini
yeah, I've
print.
seen that one.
Yeah.
Parts gin and orange bitters.
Yes, I've
was
seen
in
that
there.
one before. And was that a drams and grams?
That is
No, it was just they left out a line in printing. So I counted out the number of characters to include where it said gin and an equal part, sweet vermouth, and
orange bitters.
dash.
A dash,
And it
dash of
fit.
orange bitters.
Yeah,
Right.
and it fit. So I think it was a printer's error.
Right, so it's just missing a line from the recipe, and you see how easily these things can get messed up. I mean, it never made sense, that one, did it?
No,
No.
I mean, unless your orange bitters is very different to the orange bitters that we have today,
I doubt that.
no way that that's going to work.
We had come across it before he published it, and we didn't because I looked at that
Just
and
ignored
I thought,
it. Yeah.
if I put this out there, someone's going to make this for me. And I asked Dave, and apparently that happened to him.
It did happen to him.
But
Someone made it.
Made it
Yeah.
and made him drink it.
Chugged like a quarter of a bottle of orange bitters into a mixing beaker. Yeah.
so what we're tasting here, and bring it up to your nose. Try breathing not with your nose, but with your lips parted. Now the aromas reach not just the orthonasal receptors, but swirl around the retronasal palate. It's like listening to music with two earbuds instead of just one. Try this with wine. It brings you to the upper level sommelier in terms of olfactory acuity. Takes a little practice to look slack-jawed while you're nosing, but
It's not a sexy look, but it works.
what you get instantly is the fruit.
Yeah.
The fruit comes up, the raspberry,
raspberry
the
for sure.
strawberry.
Yeah.
But then on the palate, what you get first is that pot still base spirit, because of course they didn't have neutral spirit in 1639.
It's got a nice floral note to it, again from that raspberry, I think.
Yeah.
Strawberry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the clove comes up fairly predominant, but the juniper is distinctly there.
Yep.
But it's also got that new makey thing going for
Yep.
it.
Yeah, so you produced this, and it's now a Sipsmith product.
Yes.
And you made it, what did you say, 1,500 litres worth?
1,500
Bottles.
bottles.
worth.
No, 1,500 liters,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And you were saying that you worked with Auchentoshan Distillery in Scotland to produce the malt base for this.
And we just popped by and said, borrow a cup of new make.
Because it's important to emphasize that neutral spirit did not exist at this time. You couldn't make it until the invention of the coffee still in the 1830s.
And you still didn't use it.
You said the wrong word again. Everybody
is
does.
fun.
Another one.
Everyone-
Coffee still?
Yeah.
It's
wrong.
coffee.
Wrong.
But before coffee, it was at 1813, 14.
Blumenthal was this?
Charles Derone.
Charles Derone.
And
Celia
Celia
Blumenthal.
Blumenthal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the
1818.
French
Yes.
that actually created
And
it. It's
so-
just coffee was a better marketer.
I had one or
But their stills were not column, right? They were sort of
They were column
sequenced,
still.
yeah?
Well, they were still column still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, Derone's column, Celia Blumenthal's modified column stills were purchased by the Cubans, 3 Cuban planters, and brought over by Charles Derone, along with a filtration machine to clear up things. Yes, this is all
Our salary
1818. Yeah, No.
was just a classic pot.
that was a classic pot, but that's also a different country.
Yeah,
But
that was
Cuba,
French.
I'm talking Cuba, though.
Oh, you've already made
Yeah.
it to Cuba.
Yeah, we're having to
Already made it in Cuba.
keep up.
Yeah, keep it. Come on, we're talking Cuba. We're talking Cuba and the sugar planters in Cuba. And Daron actually took up residence, installed all of his filtration stuff and his column still stuff to get everybody up to snuff.
The charcoal filtration based on
Yeah.
the work of Jakob Loetz, 1793 in Moscow on vodka.
Yeah.
That made it to Cuba in the early 1800s. It also made it into London a few decades later to the Dalton Company,
Yeah.
commissioned by Queen Victoria to
Dalton.
Yeah.
safe drinking water into homes.
Is this the same Dalton as Royal?
Who
Yeah, Royal
became the
Dalton.
Royal
And they
Dalton
created first
Company.
Royal Dalton.
Specialists in
waters.
ceramic
Yeah.
water containing and draining vessels.
Well,
yeah.
By trial and error, they became that, but they started out, their thought pattern was, okay, if we run water through a filter pitcher, that would give clean drinking water. Now, what filters water? Well, clay. So they filled it with clay, which, needless to say, all that did was plug the spigot. Then they dug into the scientific journals. They came across the work of Jakob Loetz in Russia doing vodka filtration with charcoal. So they tried a manganese charcoal in their pitchers and essentially gave birth to the Brita pitcher.
Brita, yeah.
And
The world's first British.
well, they put safe drinking water into homes, which gave birth to the temperance movement.
Because you didn't need to drink booze anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's back to currently we're in the sort of mid 17th century.
Yeah.
So let's go forward a little bit more. We've got the earliest examples of English gin being made, but it's not called gin yet.
Nope.
No.
And we have William of Orange arrives, not bringing Geneva with him, it turns out,
Yep.
because it's already well in place. So let's sort of move through, if it's appropriate, to what we might otherwise call the gin craze and the 1700s. What was taking place then? You mentioned conspicuous drinking.
Yeah.
Upper classes are consuming this product and it's starting to filter down. What sort of, if you can, lay out the sort of strata of spirits production across society at this time? What were they making and what were they calling it? How, if at all, did it relate to Juniper spirits?
Well, part of it related to Juniper spirits because if you were a licensed distiller, you had a prescribed series of recipes. Well, one of the most popular ones, of course, was aqua fructum. You could set up a distiller's shop.
Prices.
A distiller's shop for less money, about a tenth of the price that it would cost you to open a brewery at the time. So, of course, that meant, hey, I can make money if I do this instead of doing this. Hey, no problem. As I said before, conspicuous consumption is a matter of fear of missing out. It's during a period when people were making money, and even the poor had more money than they did before or after this period.
Why was it so cheap to start a distillery?
Well, all you need is a still. Big deal. And it wasn't even generally pot stills, but just any still that you could produce the steam and could produce the spirit running out, or doing compounded, which some of them did do as well. But you had that, and just you needed a counter and some shelf space. Problem with a brewery is you need to have brewing vats, you had to have fermentation vats, brewing vats. If you were doing beer, you also needed, although some people contend with it, cooler to cool the liquid before it goes into fermentation. And there's a lot of buildup of stuff, and you need really good stout lads to help you.
Sure, you need a workforce.
You need a workforce, and a distiller could run a shop with just himself. And in many cases, it was just himself.
And then you've got the sort of favourable tax on barrels of spirit as well.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Himself or herself.
There were only 3 women who were licensed in the 1600s to produce gin, or to produce any spirit. We don't know, as I say.
And these were widows who had...
Yeah,
Inherited
they had
the license.
inherited the license, and so they were officially brought in themselves and inducted themselves after they proved that we're actually keeping a successful business running. But for the most part, yeah, they were different from the female gin compounders who were just coming up with whatever. So you have to completely segregate the two. That's basically it.
Like you say, everyone's sort of copying this FOMO. They want to be making that product, and this is becoming popular. It's Juniper waters, Juniper spirits. You've got the Distillers company who have this sort of control over
Monopoly.
a monopoly over a couple of hundred distillers.
Yeah.
Making this high-end product, or pretty high-end for the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've recreated it, and it tastes delicious. So
There's one other proviso, too, because the founders of that self-same Libre also had a monopoly. You're going to love this one. A monopoly on the spirit that was called strong proof spirit that is used in that throughout that manual. And it was a grain spirit. And they were the only ones who were allowed to produce it and distribute it to self-same. This is what you call control.
So the base spirit of their base spirit was high quality.
Very.
But no one else was able to gain access to it.
That's right.
Right. So what was it like for a lower class gin distiller, or not gin distiller, but
Compounder.
at that time? What was going into these products? Products, in inverted commas.
Turpentine, vitriol, lime, as in quick lime,
Not the citrus fruit.
yeah, which might sound like this horrific, dangerous blend, but vitriol, sulfuric acid, combined with alcohol, doesn't remain as sulfuric acid, but it turns into ethyl ether. Ether used as a general anesthetic. So that just made the spirit a lot stronger. Then the lime that was added was actually to control the fermentation, the brewing, to make sure that it turned to alcohol and not to vinegar. And then the turpentine.
It was a sort of yeast nutrient. Yeah.
Yeah, the turpentine that was added, well, that was just a pine distillate, which gave it the pine flavor.
Yeah.
So you're not far off, really, are you?
No. Yes,
I mean, it's got the
yes
ether
and
in there,
no.
of course.
Yeah,
but, you know,
I
it
mean, a
was
little
bit of
buzz.
ether.
It's a little buzz, you know. Yeah,
So, you haven't reproduced one of these recipes for Sipsmith?
No, and please don't try that one at home.
Please
we
do not do
recommend
this at home.
recreating that recipe.
But it is fascinating how cheap copycats, or what did they call it in the 1800s? Adulterations. Adulterations were reft because people wanted this stuff, and until there was a complete burst of the economic bubble, which took place the next century, you had all these people who said, well, I can do this stuff and I can make a bit of gin here and there. And they were perfectly happy doing it. And who was going to catch them? Because the police weren't going to go after their sister-in-law, or their mother-in-law for that matter. They were not willing to be beaten up by the crowd for having arrested a favorite gin seller. Yeah, there was a lot going on that said, well, this is going to keep on going until somebody finally says stop, or creates gin at a cheaper price that everyone can afford. And when the economic plateau went, bleh, that kind of made it easy.
So moving into the 18th century, we've mentioned already that the gin acts don't mention gin. They were just general alcohol acts. Was there an alcohol problem at that time?
Severe. A severe one. When you look at the consumption of beer, ale, perry. Okay, now we've covered the West Country. Cider. Oh, almost forgot cider there. Then you've got brandy, imports, whiskey coming down from Scotland, specifically Hague for one. Stuff coming in from Ireland. You had people wanted to drink.
And then domestically produced spirits in London as well?
Yes, and people wanted to drink, and also in Bristol, and also in Liverpool. And it spread, not everywhere, but that's in key areas where people could get it. Usually places where you could also export it. Because when you look at the same period in time, you had seasonal migratory fisheries that had been around since the 1500s. And they used to carry beer, And then they discovered spirits. And so all of a sudden they were putting in orders for spirits to carry over for their 6-month sojourns into the cold areas. And so you had a lot of spirits being produced, not just for internal, but for internal goes off camping, basically.
And the problem was volume
Yeah.
mostly, and not necessarily quality. So obviously some of the stuff which we mentioned is not going to be good for you,
No.
but that represents just one small part
One
of
small
consumption
part
at that
of
time.
a huge, which is why social reform tried to stop everything, as if you could ever stop the English from drinking, really. I don't think so.
Well, you know, we're good at a few things.
Well, we're really good at drinking, and that was something that always was, and it did cause a problem as far as the reformers were concerned. Is here are all these people, they get paid in booze, one way or another, when they're working in the fields or they're working in the cities. That's part of their pay, along with a hunk of bread. And it was cheaper than feeding them meat. So you're just gonna keep this up. It was a drinks craze. It was not a gin craze.
Okay, and then what happened was there were 8 acts.
Yeah, and they all had to do with regulating drink
And in truth, there were more than 8 that regulated drink
in
during
general.
that time.
Yeah.
We've amassed a pretty good collection from the late 1600s up into the mid-1800s of original copies of Acts of Parliament pertaining to alcohol production and sale in England. And there are quite a few that are overlooked, but the 8 that have been referred to for so long, yes, they were all significant in regulating spirits.
Let's
Well,
not go
sales
through
is-
all of them. And by the way, buy the book if you want to kind of learn about each and every one of them, and all their ridiculously long names. It's like deep breath, the actor. So just give me, or give everyone who's listening, watching, the sort of general mood of what the strategies were employed to try and curb alcohol production, consumption, distribution during this sort of key period. Well, I say key period,
It
the
is.
whole thing, but between the sort of 1720s up to 1751, let's say. What was the strategy?
I would start with, I think 1714, 1721 or 22, where Parliament looked at spirit production and sales, and they sat down and said, you know what, we need more of this, and actively promoted
Right.
boosting spirit production, because at the time it was responsible for, what was it,
64%.
percent of the tax revenue of the nation
Right.
was the spirit.
So they were off to a bad start in
They're off
terms
to a
of
bad
curbing
start.
consumption.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they'd rather go to war and pay for the war by having people make more booze and get taxed for it.
and drink more booze.
Yeah.
And then they got a little worried because they realized there's a lot of people drinking.
Who were we at war with at that point?
Oh God, who weren't we? Well, the French,
French, of course.
the Irish. We were involved with we hated the Spanish again. I mean, it was every single time you turned around, we were at war with somebody, so they needed money. And then you also have to look at how it was being sold. And they tried everything from let's move the excise tax to the seller instead of the producer. That was another big mistake, because the producer going, yippee, we're just going to make more. The sellers would go, okay, well, we'll do it under the table.
Yeah, it seems like it's harder to monitor what a seller is up to as opposed to
Exactly.
producers not moving around the place, right?
Right. And there was another problem because, yes, you could say, okay, gin seller or spirit sellers in general. Little bit of a problem there too, because you see, there were other businesses that used to sell spirits, like the chandlers. Of all people, the chandlers were selling spirits in their shops. The butcher would be selling spirit in his shop. Well, he's not going to get a spirits license. He's just going to get a bottle from down the street and go, here, this is what my cousin's making. It was difficult for them to say, oh, you have to do that. Then they decided, well, a lot of this is responsible because of these hussies in the ghetto that are making this horrible stuff and killing people off. Okay, well, let's have informers go after the hussies. And then they caused even more problems because the informers used to get beaten up by the hussies, boyfriends, mother, daughter, everybody was getting beaten up by somebody. And Bow Street couldn't control all of this. They had to give up. They really had to give up. And it's like every single possible solution of those 8 acts, again, not earmarking just gin, but everything. How are you going to control a country, a culture that likes to drink? You don't. And even if you say, oh, no, we'll tax you or we'll arrest you because you're serving something, good luck. Considering how many illegal alehouses there were, and they could never stop, could never control the number of alehouses, taverns, inns. People were making stuff in basements. I mean, you don't stop people from doing the thing they'd been doing for over 100 years.
Yeah, it's cultural by that point.
It's cultural. It is cultural.
So, and the tabloids at the time were vilifying gin in particular, even though the acts themselves didn't pick out gin as a problem.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Who are you going to go after?
Yeah, you go after the lower classes and vilify them, I guess.
Precisely.
And sort of state all the ills caused by this product.
Yeah.
I think we jumped past the first written reference to gin, which is
1714
Yeah.
in a poem called The Fable of Bees.
Yes, I have it here.
But even that didn't mean that it became the accepted word immediately. I've got a 1719 distillation formula book. When you get to the recipe for Geneva, not to be confused with Geneva anymore, but that's where a lot of the confusion came up. The polite term for it was Geneva, but as a footnote under that, this book said, this spirit hath more several names than any other spirit, known as Strike Fire, Tittery, Royal Colonia, Royal Celestial Geneva, and
Celestial.
etc.
Someone
That's
start,
true.
if you're going to do a new gin brand now,
Yeah.
probably not advisable. I think we've got enough. Celestial Geneva would be a good starting point
Yeah.
as a brand.
Yeah, it would be a good brand name. I like
The
it.
infamous liquor, the name of which derived from juniper in Dutch, is now by frequent use and the laconic spirit of the nation, from a word of middling length shrunk into monosyllable, intoxicating gin, that charms the unactive, the desperate and crazy of either sex, and makes the starving sot behold his rags and nakedness with stupid indolence, or banter both in senseless laughter and more insipid jests. It sounds great.
Yeah.
I
mean,
want some.
What's the bad bit in all of that? So that's Fable of the Bees.
I want some.
Yeah, I'll give it to me. I'm up for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea of bantering both in senseless laughter and more insipid jests. That's
What do you do when you're in a war-torn country
yeah.
where a series of royals spend a lot of time splashing out to look really eloquent and elegant to the rest of the universe and not spending too much money on infrastructure?
Yes, indeed.
You know?
Not much social care going on there.
No social care going on at all. And so everybody's depressed. Everybody needs a little shot of something. And even the tradition went on far enough that I think, who was it, Jack London, interviewed someone at the late 1890s in London, asking a man why he drank gin and why he had gin. He said, oh, I'm not the only one drinking gin. I give gin to my kids. I give gin to my wife because it keeps them from suffering and crying.
But was it Jack London? I can't recall, but it was an American temperance writer who'd come to London
Oh, he's the other
to
one.
meet an unrepentant drunk
Yeah.
and to document the scourge of alcoholism and to reinforce the stereotype he knew existed of a work-shy drunk. And what he found was a man who was gainfully employed, who was caring as best he could for his wife and children, but
It was Bob Cratchit.
on nights when he couldn't afford food, for the children, he gave them a thimble of gin.
Yeah.
And they'd go to sleep. And he could spend the night praying that the next day he'd be able to afford food for them.
Yeah.
And he hadn't abandoned his familial and husbandly duties for the sake of drink. In fact, it was drink that was just keeping him sane through this cruel economic downturn.
Yeah.
And this prohibitionist turned around in their opinion of alcohol and said, alcohol's not the problem.
Yeah.
It's the fact that these people have no hope. They have no chance. And really, what brought consumption down from overconsumption to consumption in Britain was mostly Prince Albert's social reforms of giving the citizens hope, giving them education,
I mean, there's parallels
social housing.
to drug epidemics as well, right?
Yeah.
You find these sort of inner city slums where this stuff takes place. And there's addictive qualities to these substances. But look at actually what the cause and effect is here, the causal line, and it is, it's a lack of social infrastructure and community that then leads people to sort of desperate measures to escape from it.
Yeah. Well, people at the time, social reformers wanted to blame everything. But even in Prohibition, little digression, even in Prohibition, the women who voted in for Prohibition in the U.S., that was the way that they campaigned for it, for the president had to agree to Prohibition. Prohibition existed, and then during the course of the decade, when afterwards, they realized Prohibition is causing a lot more crime, domestic violence, and other problems that they weren't expecting. And so they voted for the repeal of Prohibition, and it was all have to do with women's suffrage.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say alcohol is sort of the symptom of a social system that's lacking rather than the cause,
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of worked our way through most of the acts, I think, and we're now moving towards the latter part of the 18th century into the 19th century. This is when we start to see some brands actually come about. Some of the early, like Booth's, Gordon's, late 18th century Gordon's, was it early?
Tanqueray.
Tanqueray coming through in the 1830s.
Gilbey's.
Plymouth.
Yeah, Plymouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Burroughs.
So what happened? I mean, the sort of standard issue history for this is that the act solved the problem, consumption dropped, and then these brands emerged out of it. So how does the story differ to that, if at all?
Well, it came down to the cost of production became a little too much for a small distiller shop. Large scale distillers could do what they do best because they could afford it. They had money. I mean, when you realize that the Booth family had enough money to fund exploration of the Great Northwest Passage, I mean, that was not what I call a tiny profit.
It's a pretty serious marketing exercise.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, I'm sorry, the Boothia Peninsula is named after a gin. Great. But when you realize that small time producers could no longer afford to do the job, they had to consolidate together or be part of another family that wanted that business.
And there was this minimum still size as well.
Minimum still size came in.
Size. Also, still separate licenses and taxes for base spirit producers and rectifiers, which is why even today we have the tradition in making gin that you don't make your own base spirit. But by now we'd seen the columns still come to the fore because, of course, it wasn't just accepted across the boards that you used neutral spirit on the day that still was patented. It took about 20 years for it to really be adopted. So we see it in the 1850s, the 1860s, that the neutral spirit became ubiquitous. That saw the removal of sugar as well.
Just because it's a cleaner spirit that you're consuming, it doesn't need adulteration with sugar.
Right.
Exactly. And
Also,
you make greater
we've
quantities.
Seen the rise of a different sweetener, licorice, the distiller's sugar, which gives no licorice flavor in distillation, as you know.
It's just very, very sweet.
Just the perception of sweetness on the palate.
Yeah.
And so with those coming in, we saw different styles of gin born, such as London or dry gin, as seen in Muspratt's Chemistry, 1860.
Yeah.
That's the first mention of London Dry, 1860.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we found.
Yeah, there will be earlier mentions, but mostly in proprietary distillation books that may never see the light of day to the public.
Old Tom.
1811 first mentions, so mind.
Not Dudley Bradstreet. For some,
No.
The Uncommon Adventures of
yeah.
Captain Dudley Bradstreet.
Yeah.
There's two words that don't appear in that 1755 book, at least not together. Thank you, digital
Old and Tom.
copies and the ability to search an entire book. Old
Surprise.
Tom, no mention. But the cast iron cat was in there.
So this is just for anyone who's not aware of it. This was a kind of gin dispensary that you would turn up to, and you would say some magical line.
Pussy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
then,
if you got a reply of meow, you put a coin into the slot in the cat's mouth, and there was a spigot between the cat's paws.
And you pull your beaker out of your pocket.
it's a manually operated gin vending machine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was impressive.
Yeah.
I think that also coincided with one of the Gin Acts, maybe 1736, where the minimum amount of spirit that could be retailed was 2 gallons.
Yeah.
Just stop
hell of a
sort of
lot.
just casual dramming in the streets. sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the quick way round that was you walked into a pub and they would sell it to you on the installment plan.
Yeah.
And so there was yours, and you could buy
I love that.
just a little bit,
Right for the
but it
pub
was
as
now
well.
yours.
Yeah,
Right?
really. I mean, I keep thinking of the stories that I've heard about the pre-RAF lights and going into their local over in Chelsea. And, yeah, knowing that they would have a 2-gallon container of stuff that was just for the Brotherhood. No wonder they were all sitting there snorking away at gin.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? It's cheaper than beer, and you've got your 2 gallons there. And, you know, Miele had money, so...
When was that act sort of repealed? When were you allowed to
Was
start?
that a 1728? It was 28, 29, or 33. Actually, it was one of those. And then I think repeal of that one was 36.
Yeah,
Okay,
something
so
like
it didn't
that,
last
yeah.
very long then.
No,
Yeah.
that one didn't work. I mean, it's amazing how at least the flexibility of Parliament to admit to mistakes.
Yeah, no, they were moving fast. We're trying everything, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I really am impressed at the speed to which they could do things then, and
Must have been like daily talks in the House of Commons about this alcohol situation.
I think
It's like,
it
right,
was.
Usually over a drink.
yeah, exactly. The irony, right?
Yeah.
I believe there are 12 bars
Bars,
in the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
had their own whiskey in the past, haven't
Their
they?
own gin.
They've had their own gin, actually. I was distiller for Parliament for 2 years.
Yeah. But when you look at all, now you have to look at one other thing, all the other intoxicants there were at the time.
Yeah.
It's amazing that spirits was the one that everybody sort of leaned on, even though tea, coffee, and chocolate were also considered intoxicants because they gave people a buzz, but not quite the buzz. And then nobody was talking about laudanum or opium. I mean, we weren't talking about that stuff. No, that's not dangerous. It was like, okay,
It's
fine.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about spirits, but not the rest of it.
Let's just briefly touch on how gin was being consumed. In fact, it'd be nice. I don't think we've really talked much about consumption going right back, and to the 17th century. Was it always being consumed as just as drams, or was it being mixed? through the centuries?
Most often with water.
Yeah.
You walk into a pub, there would be water pitchers along the bar. You order a half gill or a gill of gin, so a little onion-shaped glass decanter, and that would come with glasses. You'd pick up a water pitcher, add a bit of water into your glass with your gin. And now the only place where you see that is in distillery labs when they're doing organoleptic analysis. It'll be cut by half with water. So in the formative years of gin, your average consumer was doing heavy organoleptic analysis.
Well, that's a nice excuse. But it was also the rise of punch.
Yes. So just to interrupt, the onion-shaped receptacles. Are we
Yeah.
talking about this kind of thing right behind us?
Actually, what's behind us would be a carboy or balloon, and if you look closely at the emaciated former soldier pictured at the feet of the syphilitic prostitute in Hogarth's Gin Lane.
The classic syphilitic prostitute.
Yes, classic syphilitic
You know the
cross.
one.
Yeah, the one that's dropping her baby off the steps. Yeah.
Two central figures in the etching. He's been called a pamphlet salesman because there's a pamphlet spilling out of his basket, as if telemarketers were already a scourge or something. But if you look closely at that basket and his hand resting in the basket, his hand is on one of these balloons. Not a Sipsmith one. But,
Oh, good.
That would be weird.
That would be really strange.
next to it is this square divided by parallel lines, which is an exact match to a loaf of gingerbread in the Museum of the City of London, left over from the 1814 Frost Fair. He was a gin and gingerbread salesman, which is what you did when you had no other recourse to income. You plied the streets, offering gin and gingerbread as early as 1731.
It's so funny that both of these foodstuffs have gin as in their names.
Yeah.
So that, and coincidentally as well, right?
Yeah, and it makes no sense because even when you go into cocktail era, the German diaspora to the United States, bringing all the German bartenders in, like the Only William, Harry Johnson, keep going. And the Only William actually used to serve a little bowl of ginger nuts with his
Billiard tips.
billiard
called
tips
them.
with his gin cocktail.
So like little ginger biscuits.
yeah, little baby ginger biscuits with his gin cocktail.
In the
Sounds lovely.
1890s, to accompany his gin Manhattans, as he called them.
Oh, and even further back, William Turrington in Cooling Cups and Dainty Drinks, when you look at the gin cocktail recipe, contained ginger syrup.
Wow, it's such a classic pairing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems to be.
Surprisingly. In fact,
I mean, both very English as well, right?
yeah, because even now when they open up the oystering season, guess what they do
Whitstable.
in Whitstable?
Gin
And gingerbread.
and gingerbread.
Yeah.
Gin and ginger beer never took off as a drink, though.
No, no.
Ginger ale.
No.
You'd think,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe it's because you need the other spices.
Yeah. Maybe it is.
I'm not too sure what the reasoning is.
Ginger was wildly popular from the early 1600s up into the 1800s. I suspect for another reason, because Europe was in the grip of the Little Ice Age. And
The warming.
ginger in traditional Chinese medicine is used to raise body temperature.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me that ginger really was sort of the flavour of the British Empire in many respects.
Yeah.
It pops up everywhere, and of course, you had the ginger beer salespeople that would be sort of dawning the streets as well.
Stone's ginger wine.
Stone's ginger wine.
Ginger also popped up in the earliest use of the word cocktail, referring
it
to a drink
does,
in
yeah.
print.
Yeah.
1789, I think it was 20th of March, 22nd of March in 1790, what did I say?
89.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
98.
Dyslexic moment, yes, 1798.
Want to challenge you on the
March.
date there, but I thought it sounded fishy.
Yeah.
The London Morning Post and Gazetteer, a newspaper with a circulation of 350 for the area around Westminster, and they were referring to the Axongate Tavern, or writing about the Axongate Tavern at the corner of Downing and Whitehall, torn down in 1824 to expand the Prime Minister's residence.
But the corner of Downing Street and Whitehall, I mean, that's pretty...
That's
Hard
central there.
Yeah.
It's pretty central there. Yeah.
And the landlord, in a political satire, had been making cocktail vulgarly called ginger for Pitt the Younger, whose premiership was marked by the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes. And this is one of the kind of theories for the etymology of cocktail is they used to stick ginger up horses' bums, make their tails pop up.
Yeah.
Keep up the spring in...
Put a little bright in the eye.
We said it's warming, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep a spring in the horse's step, eyes bright,
Yeah.
Going, whoa.
tail held high.
Holy.
Yeah, I'm feeling really good now.
And that's gingering the horse.
Yeah, I mean, rather you than me. They're known for kicking horses, and I'd rather not be on the receiving end of that just because I've stuck a knob of ginger up its backside.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But that's definitely what the paper intended for Pitt, because the masthead said price 3 shillings, tax by Mr. Pitt 3 shillings, total cost 6 shillings. So he was not their favorite person.
And then, you know, gin becomes the de facto cocktail mixing spirit. By the turn of the 20th century, it is in so many cocktails. The Martini has come about, and then we see things like the Savoy Cocktail Book, where it's basically a gin cocktail book.
Which is a more bizarre thing we just learned recently when we republished Cocatero, which is a Japanese cocktail book.
From 1923.
Yeah, which is 7 years before the Savoy Cocktail Book, but for some reason it had 91 gin cocktails in it, and 30 of them appear in the Savoy Cocktail Book.
And made
The mind boggles.
who wrote it, apparently he worked on
A boat.
passenger ship
Yeah.
that came to London prior to Craddock publishing his book.
Maybe might have met Craddock or worked at the Savoy.
We don't know.
We don't know it.
We don't
Written
know
in
yet.
Japanese, this book?
Yeah,
Yes.
Right, so Craddock wouldn't have translated it. That seems like a stretch.
that's a stretch.
So it's like the knowledge was known between both of them prior to 1923.
Yeah.
That's 7 years.
It's a 7-year gap, so nobody knows what happened. But when I counted it out to say, okay, what was more popular? This is also the same year that Japanese whiskey was invented.
Yes.
So that's why gin was more predominant than...
Taketsuru had been in Scotland,
Yeah.
exploring distilleries and working
Exactly.
along. So
But Cocatero is now, of course, available both as a faithful reprint with contributions from the bartender author's descendants,
nice.
and also in bilingual edition, and again with all proceeds to industry charity, as we did with Distiller of London.
Yeah,
And there's a digital version available.
not yet.
Not yet.
I'm getting there.
So the drinks that are common between the Savoy and that book are not in any other book before that. No. Right.
That's what's intriguing.
Yeah.
That's another one of those, okay, out there, anybody who wants to take it on, figure out how this happened. Because even Eiji Arakawa, who's the historian of Japanese cocktails and of the Maida family, can't figure out how it really happened.
And he has Bar UK
in Osaka. Yeah.
Wonderful little whiskey bar. If anybody's headed to Osaka, please drop in, meet him. He is a wonderful bartender.
Yeah, and he's a font of knowledge
Okay.
on the most amazing things. But there you go.
As are you two. That was remarkable. It's so good to take that tour through gin with you. I mean, I've read the book and I feel like I've taken it again. And it's just so fascinating to have these well-established stories that we've been telling ourselves for years, you know, meticulously researched and then brought to life through this great book, available in all good bookstores and some bad ones.
Yes, we won't discuss the names, but, you know, yeah.
So thank you. I do suggest if anyone's inspired by this that they go and buy the book, because there's a lot more detail in there, and the recipes as well are fascinating. And we've not really delved too much into recipes because they get long and convoluted, and they're very interesting.
Yes. And anybody wants to do a 52 ingredient or make a 54 ingredient gin, I go ahead and say do it.
Cool. Well, look, Jared, Brown, Anastasia Miller, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tristan. It's been great.